10 o'clock, right? In Tunisia, and well, Nesrin is in Italy, same time as
Yeah.
me. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Okay, maybe just a couple of more minutes for the others to join.
Of course, it's not time yet.
Good morning.
Is it sunny in Spain?
No, we are going. We've had like a very rainy last few weeks. I think it's pretty common all over Europe, and still a bit rainy there. Yeah, too.
We're expecting rain as well here.
There in Italy too. How about in Tunisia? Is it better?
Sunny.
Yeah, it was sunny, but we do have some rain this year. It has been rainy, so we are very, very happy with that.
Yeah, of course, I can very well imagine. Yeah, no, here we've had a bit too much. There's been some risks of flooding as well.
Now, strangely, in the north of Italy this year, not only this year, but also last year. This year, no snow whatsoever. The neighborhood and the city center, there was no snow at all. And rain, I would say that the season now for rain is summer. We don't have rain in the winter anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is strange, really.
There's
been more rain in the south than in the north.
Yeah, well, patterns are changing.
Climate change, yep.
Climate change, yeah.
Yeah, oh well.
And they predict that this summer will be very hot.
Really? Yeah, well.
That was the prediction, yeah.
We should brace ourselves for that. Cute. Let's see.
Hi, Marie. How are you?
So, Akila, how are things with you?
I'm fine.
Yes.
Very fine. Yeah.
You going to Glasgow?
Yeah. I'm getting ready for that. And with the girls, Fatma, Najla, Ahlem, and Leila, we are all
great.
What about you?
I'll see you all there. Yeah, I'll be going there. Yeah. You Nesrin too?
Yep.
Okay.
I bought the flight ticket only yesterday. I'm still struggling with the accommodation.
Yeah, I mean, I got my accommodation like already a month ago because I could figure.
Yeah, so many places are fully booked now, unfortunately.
Yeah, the ideal thing is to try to find something in the West End, which is where the university is.
Yeah.
But it's getting hard.
Yeah, and it's quite costly there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, compared to Spain or Tunisia, Britain is a little bit expensive, yeah.
From Tunisia, do you need to get a visa?
Yeah.
Because they are expensive too, eh?
Yeah, this visa is expensive too, yeah.
I'm going with my wife since she's not Spanish. We are getting a visa for her. And I mean...
nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
I mean, the procedure plus the cost plus everything.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Oh, well. Anything for the 50th anniversary of the conference.
Yeah, it's worth.
For holiday centenary.
Yeah.
Right, maybe we can already start. So, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Jorge. It is our pleasure to welcome you in our Syflat research seminars. These seminars have been going for years now, and they date back to 2014, even before we legally had our association. So many other scholars have had the chance to present during these seminars. And our audience is quite diverse. So we have scholars, teachers, students, PhD, MA students. So I would hope that your talk would talk to each and every one of them. In a very brief way about Jorge, so concerning his bio, he's got a PhD in linguistics. And he's been teaching English language and linguistics at the Universidad Complutense de Madrid. So I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. His publications mainly use SFL as a theoretical framework, And his articles include corpus-based typological descriptions, contrastive linguistics, and EFL teaching in various national and international journals and edited volumes. He has been a copy editor of the English Studies journal Atlantis, an associate dean for quality, innovation, and technologies at the School of Philology, UCM, where he previously was an e-learning coordinator. Jorge Arcita has participated in several nationally and internationally funded research and innovation projects. He published over 100 studies in different journals. These studies range from journal articles, books, edited volumes. Amongst his publications, we find a co-edited, a co-authored book titled Systemic Functional Grammar of Spanish, a constructive study of English, published by Bloomsbury in 2010 with Lavid and Zamorano. He also co-edited a book titled English Modality, Core, Periphery, and Evidentiality, published by De Gruyter, 2013, with Martin and Corretero. Languages for Specific Purposes in the Digital Era is another book published by Springer in 2014 with Bartena and Reed. Another book titled The Dynamicity of Communication Below, Around, and Above the Clause by Benjamins in 2016 with Ben Clark. He also co-edited two special issues on systemic functional linguistics. The first one is in Spanish. I wouldn't read the title. The second one is in English, a special issue in Lingua 2021, titled Dynamicity and Contrast in Systemic Functional Linguistics. He's currently working on the co-edition of a special issue in the journal Language, Context, and Text, the Social Semiotics Forum, on SFL visibility, accessibility, and applicability, together with Christian Matheson and Claudia Stoyan. So this is basically, I believe, the topic which is related to today's talk. So without any further ado, please all welcome Jorge, and the floor is yours. Welcome among us, please.
Thank you very much, Nesrin, for your very nice introduction. And and thanks for the invitation to take part in these seminars, which I attest to their being now front of mind for everybody in systemic functional linguistics. So I want to congratulate the association for the success of this series of seminars that you hold regularly. And I will share my screen very shortly. But since Nesrin made the connection between the last publication that she mentioned, on which we are working right now, and today's topic, I'd like to stress the motivation, right, for the topic that has brought us together today. And it is the fact that for the last year approximately, Christian Matheson and myself have been collaborating closely on trying to come up with ideas, suggestions, etc., for making SFL more visible, more accessible. Okay. Because we know that this is one of we all want our research to be recognized widely. We want to be cited. We want to be quoted. And sometimes we fear that we might end up always being the same people, quoting one another all the time. A further motivation and ultimate motivation for this is that SFL, the same as any other theory, if it's not visible, it is as if it didn't exist, right? Because others won't know about it. And if it is visible, people know about it, but it is not accessible, well, it's much of the same, right? It might as well not exist. You might hear of a theory, it exists. We know there are some big names, Michael Halliday, Christian Matheson, etc. But if researchers cannot easily find SFL material, they will forget about it, right? Therefore, we have been working on these ideas. We already presented some last summer in Timișoara, in Tunisia, sorry, in Romania, in the latest so far edition of the European Systemic Functional Conference. We are working on this special issue that Nesrin very kindly mentioned, and we are working also on some other volumes addressing the same issues. So I'm going to share with you some of the ideas that have come up so far. Most of them we already presented them um, in Romania last summer. But well, since, as we know, was the European context and many people did not have the opportunity to be there, I think this would be also an ideal forum to present them and hopefully discuss them right at the end of,
Sure.
of the talk. Very good. So let me share my presentation. I'm going to share screen. Let me see where this. Okay, here it is. Okay, entire screen. Share. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So this is the talk of my the title of my talk that you already mentioned, and this is the basic outline of what we will be doing this morning for this hour. We'll be looking at availability of SFL in different languages. We'll also be looking at the theory with respect to other linguistic disciplines, and also across its visibility and accessibility across academic profiles, including novel researchers and more seasoned researchers. And then we will deal with some final thoughts. Okay. So if we start with availability in different languages, this is something that concerns all of us, right? Because I suppose, I know most of us, if not all of us, are non-English native speakers. And as we know, the most seminal work in SFL has been conducted in English, right? And sometimes English has been, for that reason, kind of blamed for being too Anglo-centric, although, of course, all those like us who work with SFL and are more familiar with it, we know very well that Michael Halliday was a sinologist, right? So he was very much influenced by Chinese in his development of the theory. But anyway, so let's see, first of all, about some translations or adaptations of key SFL terms, texts. We are not going to, of course, read the list. I simply want to show you that different languages will have translated or adapted texts. So Spanish has a few cases, you can see them there. There's some in French, maybe not so much. Maybe you know of others, because of course French is an important language in the Tunisian context. For Nesrin, Italian too. It was our colleague in Italy, Donna Miller, who gave me these references here. Chinese is by far the language where most SFL work has been translated and or adapted. We have these references here. We have more here, more here. Of course, this makes sense in the sense that, as I said before, SFL draws heavily on Chinese linguistics from the times of Halliday's training with Professor Lee, and also the fact that people like Christian Mathisen and other important scholars have spent part of their academic careers either in mainland China or, in the case of Christian Mathisen, in Hong Kong, right? So here we continue. So the amount of work in Chinese translated into Chinese is quite impressive, as you can see from these slides, not only from Halliday, but also the translations of Rukaya Jim Martin, etc. Japanese also has some publications, and we have here some books, some chapters. Kazuhiro Teruya has been very much involved in many of these. We have some more chapters here. Okay. Now, what about Arabic, no? Which is the other major language of concern in the Tunisian context. Well, I didn't really find any reliable. Of course, I had the limitation of not reading Arabic myself, but the things that I found and upon the couple consultations I made didn't seem to be like reliable sources. You will be able to tell me about that at the end. I know that there is a translation of IFG5 underway, coordinated both by Christian Mathisen and Christina de Courcy. Now, so those were translations. What about SFL research conducted in other languages? So languages other than English, right? So the difference here is conducted versus translated before. We have some in Spanish here. The first reference is actually I believe, the reference that Nesrin didn't dare read in Spanish. But well, it was a compilation of a systemic functional work in Spanish. In French, we also have some research conducted in the language, the same for German, the same for Portuguese, which did not appear before in the translations part. Chinese, of course, but you will see that now Chinese only has one page. So whereas there's been a lot of translation and a lot of adaptation, there is not so much work originally conducted and written in Chinese. I don't, of course, mean to imply that these are the only four sources written originally in Chinese, but the contrast with the, I don't know how many slides I showed you before, 6, 7 of translations, I think is quite remarkable. We also have in Japanese, and actually in Japanese, there's a nice source which is here, which is the Japanese Journal of Systemic Functional Linguistics. And that's an outlet for a lot of research, EFL research, done in Japanese. And we get back to Arabic again. I found this. You will tell me later if this really says systemic functional linguistics and translation theory. Apparently, this is a book that has been, and probably you might even know the author, and maybe the author is even present here. So in that case, I apologize for my lack of knowledge about the Arabic writing context. But well, you will be able to confirm at the end if you know of this book or. Now we continue. Another important aspect in making SFL available and accessible to other languages, speakers of other languages, is typological descriptions, right? I have taken, this is a bit old now, this is 2016. Since then, more typological work has appeared, and there is more typological work underway. So this is from Muillar and Xuan, 2016, a survey of studies in systemic functional linguistics. So we can see here in this list that there is a good array of languages that has been languages that have been described typologically from a systemic functional perspective, whether whole or parts of them, right? And here in Arabic, we find 3. There are probably more since. I know there are a couple more papers since then. I know that our Tunisian colleague, Mohamed Ali Bardi, he's been one of the most active people in typology in particular, and probably some of the people present here too. The communities of practice are also very important, right, in making SFL well known to and accessible to people, speakers of languages other than English, right? We have, well, the little map you have on the right hand side is just for illustration purposes. It is not reflecting the information on the left hand side. So we know that we have plenty of SFL associations in country or regional areas. The Syflat website we will see later is a very important source of information. And there we see information on those communities of practice, those associations, right? We have the international one, which is Syflat. We all know it. We have the regional ones, Europe, North America, Latin America, Nordic. Then we have the national ones, including Tunisia. So these communities can do a lot of work to make. They actually do very important work, like Syflat, in making SFL available and well known to the communities in which they take place. Right. More about communities of practice. Other communities of practice are also research groups within institutions, right? I have included here some which I am familiar with, like the Polysystemic Research Group in PolyU. I know the Spanish context, of course. The FUMCAP Lindes are two groups from Spain to which I belong. And of course, we couldn't leave Syflat out of this picture. Another way in which communities of practice can help and do actually help is workshops, courses, guidance from experienced SFL practitioners, helping individuals and applying SFL principles to the analysis of other languages. And this can be done through, and is sometimes done through pre-conference workshops, sometimes focusing on languages other than English, summer courses, abstract, article, and Cracker Barrels workshops. Cracker Barrel workshops are those where ideas come up about possible publications. An interesting idea that Christian Mathisen and I had, it was his idea actually, talking about these things one day, was that it will be, we know this is time consuming, right? But it would be, we know that sometimes when we host international conferences, sometimes some of the most problematic abstracts come from students or novel researchers from countries where English is not the mother tongue, and they have problems to express themselves, or they have even problems to understand the English-speaking academic world. So it will be interesting to have sometimes, instead of just bluntly rejecting abstracts and proposals, to have some seminars, some workshops for those people who have problems with those abstracts, and an online seminar where they are a bit instructed on how to improve their abstracts so that they can make it into the conferences, right? And of course, for all these, mailing lists are very important. Here, I originally reflected on, even in other languages, but it's true that nowadays online communication is no problem because we can get instant translations, right? But anyway, Sysfling, Sysfang, Asflanet, these email tools, servers, whenever we don't get into futile discussions and too much bickering, they are very helpful. We all know that in Sysfling, many scholars, young scholars from other countries, from countries from non-English speaking countries, they post questions, and usually the community is very good at engaging in answering those questions, right? Now, I should say that Christian Batin and myself, we both we ran a survey through Google Forms, and probably some of you even. I hope all of you or most of you were aware of this survey and even had the opportunity to answer and to send some responses. And here are some of the results according to the points, to the issues that we are discussing here, right? So in terms of accessibility to speakers of different languages, we see that a great majority of SFLers disagree. Okay, 41% of SFLers disagree with the idea that SFL is accessible to speakers of other languages. So, of course, there is a lot of work to do here. Strongly agree is the smallest portion here, and simply agree is this. I mean, it's the second largest, but it's much closer to the smaller portion than the others. We also ran the survey on WeChat with our Chinese colleagues. Why? Because as you probably know, from China, the same as from other parts of the world, Google and other American-based platforms are not easily accessible. So we asked our colleague Wang Bo, formerly from based in China, now based in Vancouver, Canada, to do us the favor and disseminate the survey among Chinese colleagues through WeChat. And these are the results that we got. What is very interesting, and that's why I say here, of course, it depends on the context, is that whereas SFLers at large disagreed with the fact that it is accessible to speakers of other languages, in the Chinese context, the largest, the preferred answer is agree, okay? Followed by strongly agree. Mhm. So, of course, this is easily relatable to what we saw before, the vast amount of translations of SFL into Chinese. So this seems to point to actually translations and adaptations, and of course, original work being a key aspect of making the theory available to speakers of languages other than English. Here are some SFLer opinions from also the same survey, and if you look at them, again they highlight the need to have translations. The third one has I have had access to a few introductory manuals. So introductions are also important. Focus, groups very much related to the communities of practice we said before. Doing joint research, of course. Uh, uh, More senior researchers working with junior researchers. Of course, a typical, most obvious way is in the thesis supervising, right? But also at other levels. And what we said before, no, the need for workshops, summer courses, etc. In Asian, this is apparently somebody from Asia, and other non-English speaking countries. Okay, good. Um, More opinions. Actually, the first one here is interesting because they say many of the most valuable books, both old or new, are inaccessible from small universities in Argentina, like the one where I work. No school library would ever be able to buy these books, etc. And here there is obvious, although I'm aware, not easy solution, which is we should all try to publish as much as possible uh, open access. We know that open access is expensive sometimes. We should always, whenever we submit something to a journal, investigate, because very often publishers have special agreements with our research institutions and we don't know about them. And sometimes through those agreements we can publish open access for free. But you know that also all journals practically, they will allow us to publish our pre-proof accepted version of research on ResearchGate, academia, university repositories. So if we do this, this is a way of making our research available to people all around the world, right? Because it's not only the idea of having the English translated. Sometimes it's simply the idea of having the original sources available to people from areas where access is not so evident, right? And the last comment here is also interesting because this person says SFL theory models of analysis are so complex, especially for non-native speakers of English. and this complexity issue uh, made me reflect, because of course complexity highly jeopardizes the accessibility of SFL, right? And so I reflected a little bit about this topic, because we know that SFL has indeed been criticized for being too complex. Uh, but against this, I found something debunking this, which is this research by Accursor and Gebhardt 2021 in the US context, where precisely you know that the US is being one of the hardest territories to crack for SFL. They have after an experiment they conducted with pre-service language teachers, they concluded that SFL, as you have in the quote there, SFL is not too complex for teachers, even those without prior training in linguistics. And for many teachers, the theory has great explanatory and pedagogical power. So it looks like it's more a question of taking the trouble to train pre-service teachers, pre-service researchers, etc., for them to, get an understanding, and then mostly teach them to be able to show their students in turn that this is not so complex. And in any case, even if there is some complexity in here into SFL, and nobody can deny that, and some density, as I have there at the bottom of the second half of the slide, even if SFL is a dense theoretical framework, such a comprehensive framework as SFL has to be dense in a way, right? Because language is a complex phenomenon, and you cannot explain complex phenomena with platitudes, right? Can you? Now, having said that, maybe ways to chunk it up in terms of transmission, dissemination, like for instance, educational pills. Some work has been done on that, we will see later. Now, about this issue, we see that this is a problem common to the humanities, right? The application to real world contexts. But in any case, SFL is an applicable theory, right? That's what makes SFL different in a way from other linguistic theories. And as such, it is perceived by SFLers. Yeah? Here in this graph from the survey, 60 something percent agreed that it is, and even among non-SFLers. This is not representative because this I put it up on I share it on my ResearchGate and Academia platforms, and only 4 non-SFLers answered. But well, 3 of the 4 said that, agreed that SFL is highly applicable. Well, applicable for them. Yeah. Sorry. Applicable for them, applicable for us, right? Now, let's move on to the second point, which is SFL and linguistic disciplines. And I would like to start by pointing out something that happened to me. I once submitted an application to get funding for going abroad on research during my sabbatical last school year. And in the feedback I got this. You have the translation in brackets there. The model theoretical framework of systemic functional linguistics is nowadays surpassed by other perspectives and currents focused on discourse analysis, which of course this elicited my immediate reaction, and I complained about that, which the evaluator didn't appreciate. But well, I'm sorry about that. But now what matters at this point is, why should there be this perception of SFL? How general is it? That is maybe point to SFL being widely unknown or misunderstood, and this links to what we said before. Again, maybe we need to make a bigger effort to make SFL better understood, to show that it covers a lot of ground and that it is not an unmanageable theory. For this, right, for making SFL theory better known in general. Now not so much focusing on speakers of other languages, right? But on researchers on other disciplines. An important part here, or an important role is played by websites, right? And our mother website is, of course, the ISFLA website. And on the ISFLA website, we can see how there is one page on related formalisms. And that's already important because these related formalisms, like rhetorical structure theory, appraisal, legitimation code theory, and critical discourse theory, these are important gateways into other disciplines, right? Because it is a fact that other disciplines, other theoretical linguistic disciplines, pragmatics, etc., that feel a bit lazy or just don't know about SFL or feel lazy about incorporating SFL, those disciplines do sometimes work with appraisal, work with rhetorical structure theory, with legitimation. And so it's important for SFL to have to make everybody aware that these theories, these related formalisms, are partly SFL, right? Now, how well known or unwell known is SFL, in fact? Well, a survey respondent, as you have there, said SFL seems relatively unknown to the linguistic departments in America. But again, going to the ISFLA website, we see that there is like a good number of SFLers in education in the US. I counted around 15, which of course 15 is nothing in such a huge country like the US. But 15 people on the ISFLA website probably means there is a good number, a larger number of them actually working in the US, and we all probably know some of our colleagues in the US working mostly in educational linguistics. Yeah? So that, as is very often the case with these things, presents both an opportunity and a challenge. The challenge is that SFL is outnumbered in a context like the US and in many other contexts. But when you are outnumbered, that means that there is a lot of room for improvement, and that is the opportunity. Good. So I looked to see how SFL, how well known or not well known SFL is in other linguistic circles. I looked at citations of SFL in non-SFL research. Okay, so what I did here is, for instance, I'm just going to show you the first one. I went to Google Scholar. I said, "How interested in functional grammar?" And I looked at the people citing. Sorry, not here. At people citing the different works. Okay, not here. Sorry again. This one. So I looked at the people citing the different SFL works, and I did a rough ballpark accounting of whether they were SFLers or non-SFLers, right? So the most important reference book in SFL, which is IFG. Well, there are many non-SFLers, but when we move beyond that, English text, another important work, mostly SFL, people citing it, working with discourse, mostly SFL, the language of schooling, by Shep Regal, miscellaneous, mostly US researchers, because Mary is based in the US, and as we know, US researchers have a tendency to cite one another. Exploring translation and multilingual projects beyond context, several non-SFL, syntax, mostly SFL, language typology, around 75% SFL. So we see that even the lexical and cartography, most SFL. So for the most part is SFLers citing SFLers. So there seems to be a need to maybe us in our research, maybe to try to make an effort to move outside of SFL when we do the literature review of the topic we are dealing with, so as to attract the attention of those people, right? Because when we know, when ResearchGate or academia tells us your paper has been cited by, and then I don't know this guy, this ladies, and you check it out, no, and then maybe somebody working on a different discipline, and you read the paper, and you may fall interested, etc. So more about presence in linguistic disciplines. We know that SFL is strong in educational linguistics, right? Michael Halliday said from the very onset of his SFL life that his main concern was educational linguistics. And often nowadays, this happens through genre-based pedagogy, right? The model developed by Tim Martin, David Rose, etc. SFL and education is important, and that's why we have a whole page on the Syflat website devoted to systemic functional linguistics and education. Okay, and if we look at things like language teaching and SFL, well, we get a lot of returns, 27,000. Of course, not all of them will be valid, but that means that there's a lot of work done. And also languages for specific purposes and SFL, we get also a good amount of results, right? Good. Now, we know that SFL is often present in language typology and description, in computational linguistics, in discourse analysis, in social linguistics, some others. There is a niche here, which is generative AI. There is some SFL research, okay. I got 6 ChatGPT and SFL, 4 OpenAI and SFL, 2 Copilot, which is more recent than SFL. But it's harder to find linguistic publications in general, not just SFL, about research on AI, right? There's some generativists, as usual, but I think here again we have a very good opportunity, right? Because I mean, studying the discourse analysis of doing discourse analysis of AI's text can be a fascinating area, right? Now, SFL in combination with other approaches. We already mentioned something before, no? CDA often hand in hand with SFL, but not always, including positive discourse analysis. Appraisal is arguably the area of SFL most often used in combination with other approaches. But as we know, it's also almost a theory in itself. And I'm sure many people, mostly those coming from outside who work with appraisal, are not always particularly aware that appraisal heavily draws on SFL. Okay. Multimodal analysis, of course, often hand in hand, but not always. And genre-based pedagogy, which, as I said before, is a powerful source of dialogue with other theories, right? Because it attracts outsiders, and it's very SFL based. So this is a very good, and actually this is done, no? This genre-based pedagogy is one of the most fruitful areas of research nowadays, and it provides very good opportunities for dialogue. Now, corpus linguistics is another important area. About SFL using corpus linguistics, we have here in the bio blurb of contributors to the Routledge Handbook of SFL, the word corpus appears 13 times. So corpus and SFL go together. Now, here we have to differentiate between SFL using corpus and corpus linguistics using SFL, which is another thing that is very much of interest to us, right? Not just us using corpora, but those who declare themselves as corpus linguists using SFL, where SFL is used as a theoretical underpinning for interpretations of findings, right? In this reference by Hunston, she says, corpus linguists have found the categories proposed by SFL useful in describing the context of key terms or in providing a theoretical framework underpinning a search for pattern. Now, here, whether it's SFL using corpus linguistics or the other way around, as Hunston herself says, it's a question of perspective, right? SFL approaches that annotate large corpora are considered as doing SFL using corpora rather than as doing corpus linguistics. Studies of lexis are considered to be doing corpus linguistics. Well, this is pretty much splitting hairs, but probably there is more SFL doing using corpora than corpus linguists wanting to use SFL. Legitimation code theory is also another area of dialogue with SFL, mostly lately through mass and presence, which where James Martin has been working a lot on the idea of possessing knowledge and transmitting this knowledge, mostly in the teaching contexts. Pragmatics, which is a very important area in linguistic studies, right? Well, I have found some sources like combining SFL and pragmatics, which is very good, and I think is very, very, very healthy for SFL because, there are some words in SFL which sometimes feel like anathema, no? Like almost sinful to pronounce them, like pragmatics, like syntax, because they're supposed to be subsumed in the grammar, no? But I think that is good that we lose fear of using those terms, and that either us looking out or others looking into SFL, we try to find complementary perspectives, right? Also, pragma dialectics, no? Which, in case somebody doesn't know what it is, okay, it's an argument that is used to analyze and evaluate argumentation in actual practice, okay? Well, also in pragma dialectics, I found several studies using SFL. Ecolinguistics is a very trendy area of study, right? Well, in ecolinguistics, we have some studies from SFL. We know that our colleague Tom Bartlett, who's the convener of the upcoming 50th anniversary conference, he's very active in ecolinguistics. We have some other references here, combining SFL with other approaches here. These are two examples of recent examples of SFL working in the field of ecolinguistics and or sustainability. Now, what do SFLers think about this before we move on to the last part of the talk? Well, disagreement for the most part here too about the visibility of SFL to other linguistic approaches, right? It's kind of polarized, right? We have 36 disagree, 31 agree. Small amount of strongly agree, or strongly disagree. Again, highly dependable on context, no? Here in the Chinese context, this is not so polarized. There's and again more positive than in the non-Chinese context, right? Mostly agree, followed by neutral, okay, and disagree very little, and strongly disagree almost negligible. So again, there are grounds here to explore why this would be so in the Chinese context as opposed to the non-Chinese context. About several opinions, someone said we need to be less cliquey, right? Not to be so focused on SFL and nothing else. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I agree with this. Maybe I would like to hear some opinions at the end, but well, this is an opinion. Here we have the opposite one, no? The opposite view. SFL is invisible because the others don't have their eyes open. Well, probably it's neither one thing nor the other, no? The last one, SFL has never been an accessible theory. Well, I would have liked to see some more explanation of that. Latin American context, scarcely used or known. Yeah, it's true that, when people have studied traditional linguistics, sometimes we just feel cozy and we don't want to make the effort of moving. So it's for us doing SFL, we have an opportunity to pique the interest of colleagues of ours in other contexts that deal with more maybe traditional frameworks. No, this is an interesting one. I honestly think that the SFL community suffers from a certain kind of victim mentality, as it is intentionally marginalized within mainstream linguistics. Well, I don't know if this is so, but it's food for thought, right? We shouldn't just stay at that stage of like, okay, well, nobody understands us. No, I think we have the tools to make ourselves understood. This guy in American context, SFL perhaps says too little about cognition. Again, I think this is more a matter of not making SFL um, accessible or visible, because I just think of the 1999 book, by Halliday and Matheson, the one the thick book, right, on the semantic view of SFL and the approach to cognition, I think it was called actually. And there they explain very well the difference between the more static approach to cognition in cognitive models and the more dynamic approach. So I think we have the texts. They're just not known to other people. My personal experience has been that American formalists are changing their attitude. So here we have a more optimistic view, and that they are more open to dialogue. Well, that would be great. Okay? But still more bridges need to be built. And let's move on to the last part, which is across academic profiles. We saw first we started with languages other than English or regions. Then we moved to disciplines, linguistic disciplines, and then academic profiles. How can we make the theory available? Well, textbooks and resources, they are very important. I think we publish a lot in SFL, but we need to make sure that they are accessible. Training programs and workshops, of course, we need to make them as available as possible. Webinars, online seminars, sessions like the ones you guys organize at Syflat, okay? Also the Sydney SFL seminars, Syflat seminars, Syflat seminars. Online courses and tutorials are important. For instance, since we don't have those many formal education programs, maybe we can try to have nano MOOCs and MOOCs, mobile, massive open online courses. And those are an opportunity to make for the lack of formal training programs, no? We have, let me see if this opens up. Yeah, we have in Syflat, we have some information about non-formal education, okay? Also, as I said before, open access publications, and here the involvement of institutions is very important. But as I said before, sometimes our institutions are involved and we don't know, so we always need to make sure that we know what the story is. How to support novel researchers, community support, and this is a bit very similar to what we said about supporting people from other regions who are not typically associated with SFL, no? Email lists, workshops, abstracts. Abstract and article workshops. Through software analytical tools to make these tools available. And I think that, again, through the Syflat website, they are available. And sometimes some people may not know that they are here. And and there are workshops every so often conducted on how to use these tools. And about multilingual resources, okay. I showed you before the ones on the Japanese page. There also are on the Spanish association sites. I will go there. Finding ways to support novel researchers, making digital archives and repositories available to them. Okay. For instance, you have examples here. We all know of this important project to have Halliday and Hassan's research made available to everybody, right? This is a very important project for the systemic community. Also, um, the video repository on Vimeo, which many people don't know it exists. Okay, and there are some very nice videos here. And then our personal ResearchGate and academia sites complementing open access, no? Specific websites, the ones about the related formalisms that we saw before, material on the Syflat website. I particularly like the search for someone teaching SFL near you, which might give, I don't know how well maintained this is, but it can give you, it can give you an idea of who to contact in your area. Okay. Find more ways to support novel researchers, including, of course, SFL in official curricula. Okay. But we know this is hard. There's an indication of such formal education courses on the Syflat website again. Okay, they are here. There are efforts now, the Complutense, you might have heard of this, to create a master's program. We are hoping to be able to open it in September. And then, of course, the importance of masters and thesis, no? And PhD thesis. And we know that our colleague, Mick O'Donnell, does a very nice job of keeping this archive alive and always communicating what's new in the archive. And about the SFL opinions, and we are approaching the end. Well, here we are a bit more optimistic. We believe more in the efforts we make to make the theory accessible to novel researchers. Okay, so most of them agree. The same in the Chinese context, but less polarized again. So here we had agree and disagree. In the Chinese context, mostly agree and strongly agree. So I don't know if our Chinese colleagues are just more optimistic. I don't know if there will be any Chinese attendant today here and can confirm this, but the results there are usually better. And accessibility to students, teachers, and researchers. Well, again, most of us agree. Okay, although also a non-negligible number disagree. Similarly, in the Chinese context, okay, agree and disagree are the two largest ones. And about opinions, education is important, what we have been saying, training and education. And this is a nice one. I often feel as if no matter how hard I work to make SFL accessible to my students, decisions are being made at university level to water down what we can teach. An example, blah, 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 blah. We move to the end. But this situation will only decrease accessibility of SFL and bury more deeply in its undeniable value to society. And then this is what I like here. Sorry, a comment more than a question. Had to get off my chest. I think that, it's good that some people found this survey an opportunity to say the things that they had in mind, no? And some final thoughts. Well, much has and is being done. I mean, I don't think we should flog ourselves. I think we should, in a way, be happy with what we have done so far, but of course not be too satisfied yet. We need to challenge ourselves to move forward on these areas. Areas to be exploited. Well, more publications in or on languages other than English, more open access publications, which taking those things into account that I said before, keeping our personal repositories up to date, and whenever we cannot make publications readily available, whenever somebody asks for a publication, try to send it to them. More non-formal training, which is faster to prepare and easier than opening official programs. Collaborating with colleagues from other approaches. This is a very good way to make the theory available. And of course, community support by ad hoc workshops, which we do a lot in systemic conferences, right? But with a specific address of novel researchers and non-native English speaker researchers. Of course, we have to serve the AI wave. There is no way around it. You know that any paper having AI in it or ChatGPT or whatever is going to attract plenty of citations. And this is all this is just to, if you want to know more, since I guess I'll be sharing the presentation with you. Um, this is a first paper that Christian and myself published recently on. This is a paper based on the interpretation of the survey results that I showed you here. Try to find reasons for the discrepancies between the Chinese and non-Chinese context, and for the general disagreement with several of the statements in the survey. And this is another book that Christian Matheson and Claudia Stoyan, who was the convener of last summer's conference, are putting together and helping them with it too, on the same topic, with papers dealing with either accessibility, visibility, or applicability of SFL. And this is all. So I thank you for your attention. I hope I didn't bore you too much, and I'll be now happy to take on any questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jorge. That was great. I mean, I really love the reflection on the theme of SFL as a theory. I really enjoyed looking at the positive and negative, opinions concerning, because I believe this is something fundamental for any theory to live and progress and move forward with all the changing. Incoming theories from other disciplines as well. I think we need to take a moment and reflect on what we've done and how we've done it and what the others have done around us. So, really, congratulations on the amazing work. I participated in the survey myself, and I found it an opportunity to put things out of my chest myself, but I wasn't the one who wrote that.
Okay.
Because I also believe that there is a lot to be said. And I think that this is a good opportunity also to hear perhaps the voices of those who have not been heard before. And maybe there could be something that you can add later on. And without taking the floor to say anything more, please, if you have any question, any comment you would like to share with Jorge, the floor is yours. Of course, you can raise your hands, and yes, Satila and then Fatma, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Jorge. That was really interesting and a comprehensive state of the art, if you like. I felt like, as Nasreen said, it's time for reflection, and I think it's high time to do that. And while you were talking, I was taking note and trying to react to your to what you were saying. And I had a lot of reactions, most of which you already had later in your talk. So I'm going to drop this. But I will, in order not to take too much time, I will just focus on accessibility at national levels, because I think everything starts bottom up. So if we want to, to make SFL more accessible, I think that should be included in official curriculum. So that's the idea. The problem is that this requires a lot of effort, especially, and I was all the time reflecting about our experience in Tunisia. I mean, we do have a growing community working with SFL and on SFL in Tunisia, but it's still individual, or let's just say very restricted effort. For example, at the University of Sfax, we managed to introduce SFL in the English Masters in Linguistics, but with a lot of resistance, not only from the official side, but also from colleagues who feel comfortable with the old curricula and who would like to remain at their comfort zone. So, it's because we are living this, it's really a very challenging task to change the mentality of people and to make them open. And I think maybe the the way to do this is to try to simplify, or let's say to popularize the theory. Why I'm saying this, because what you said at the beginning of your presentation, that some people find SFL concepts a little bit complex. Yes, yes, it is. Now, when I start teaching my students about instantiation, stratification, and all these figures, etc., they sometimes they really block out, and they make this resistance. So we should, maybe a group of us in SFL should work on this version of the theory. Of course, making the theory simpler does not mean trivializing it or making it simplistic. But I think that there should be a group of us, SFLers, who work on, let's say, making a version that is more accessible to students. Some of the work, for example, what Jeff Thompson in his textbook has done very nicely, but there should be more work like this in order to make the theory more accessible. That's one. And then the idea of, at a higher level, maybe the work on projects, and specifically transdisciplinary projects. I think this is the only way of collaborating with scholars from other fields. And you nicely showed a list of all the possible collaborations. I hope you will be able to share your presentation with us so that our researchers can benefit from all these directions. Why not look for calls for projects, especially for funding, because that's another limitation to us at national level, again, to try to collaborate with people from international communities. We all the time have the limits of funding, the limits of time, the limits of accessibility. So thank you for raising all these points. And I think we look forward to reading the work out of the analysis, because what you presented today is the state of the art, but it's worth reading the explanations, the account of this, so that we can benefit from it. Thank you very much again. Thank you.
Thank you, Akila.
Jorge, you can go ahead if you want to.
Yeah, sure. No, I agree with Akila 100%. I think in the end, it would be very nice for us if we could get things top down, but in the end, that's not going to happen. So it's going to have to go bottom up. No, it's going to. One of my favorite quotes ever. I always tell my students, I tell my family, everybody's fed up with that. For anything in life, is I always remember this quote by John Fitzgerald Kennedy, which is, "Don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask yourself what you can do for your country." No, well, this would be the same. No, we should ask ourselves what we can do for SFL to become better known and more accessible. And Akila, I agree with you that there is a need to make SFL both the theory itself and the terminology in the theory more readily understandable. Okay, I am sure that if right now we conduct, we get 100 SFLers together and we ask them, like seasoned SFLers, like experienced SFLers, and we ask them to, in 30 seconds, explain the difference between realization and instantiation.
Go straight to the point, Jorge.
We would be in trouble. But I think this is the kind of reflections. No, it's okay. Why is it so hard? Well, let's find a way to explain this a bit better. Okay, and maybe I'm sure that there are books coming out on key terms in systemic functioning, and just one came out by Christian Mathisen and Kazuhiro Teruya tried to explain, but in the end it is inevitable that it end up being like 800-page books or whatever, so you see it and you don't want to open it. So it's true, we should come out with manuals, right? Like 100-page manuals. Even like I fumbled with the idea sometimes of having an SFL handbook for dummies, all this collection of dummies that
Right.
Well, that would be a nice one, or even a comic strip, something that would make it very readily. The first thing we need to do is remove the seriousness curtain, because if it looks too grave, too serious, then people are scared. We need to make it attractive, and so we need some extreme makeover training there.
Sure.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. Actually, I skipped Mr. Malish. So, Dr. Malish, the floor is yours, and then will be Fatma. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I think it's Fatma's turn, isn't it?
No, I think you raised your hand first, and I didn't notice that, and then
You're a professional referee in this team, yes. So thank you very much indeed. I'd like to thank Professor George for this thought-provoking presentation. Um, um, I think I hope I'll be objective with SFL because um, I like it. I'm fond of SFL, and sometimes I'd like to. I exert myself to strike a balance between subjectivity and objectivity. So, concerning the ways to make SFL popular and to make inroads into the research map, do you think we are able to say, or to answer the question, what SFL can do that other theories and models cannot? Kind of division of labor. In history, for example, structuralism was able for successive decades to get into different areas of knowledge. Structuralism in architecture, in language, in arts, in mythology, Foucault, anthropology, Strauss. So can SFL do like that? You mentioned the accessibility and the Chinese case. Maybe as far as the Tunisian case is concerned, I don't think that accessibility can be enhanced through translation, because translation is addressed to Arabists, not to English-speaking researchers like myself and the audience here. The Arabists, I mean, traditionally they have been maybe their mindset is actually fashioned by structuralism and hermeneutics. Are we capable of converting them to the SFL paradigm? I'm not accusing Arabists in my country, but I know many of them, and they are very much inclined towards structuralism. A question here also is about SFL's ability to ramify into, or to make some self-revisions, radical refinements. Like, for example, at TGG, there was government unbinding principles and parameters. Is SFL able to transcend the Bible-like classic work of Halliday and Matthiasson? Are there radical revisions to build some cumulative theoretical knowledge and experience? So I feel that there is something blocked somewhere historically in the theory. So I'm not accusing the theory of being maybe handicapped, but are there, because any successful theory like TGG or structuralism or deconstructionism has gone through successive cycles of revisions. My final question and comment is about the applicability in formal models. You mentioned AI. Can we see SFL in robotics, in natural language processing? You mentioned also computational linguistics. I think computational parsing of sentences has been very much resistant to SFL so far. There are many attempts like publication by Thompson et al. 2019, which is a tentative endeavor to uh, make inroads into computational linguistics. So my comments maybe are multifarious and they go in different directions. I hope you have got some linking thread for my various comments. I'm sorry for being sometimes a bit complex. So thank you very much for being lengthy, and I'd like to listen to your response to that and to your expert, comments on this field. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for your very detailed questions and for your deep reflections, right? Deep reflections are always needed, right? When dealing with the place of a theory and the future of a theory. And now I think that the first part of what you asked me was about what SFL could offer, right? That other theories that may not offer so well. What we could call thinking of marketing, what we could call its USP, its unique selling point, no, that they use in marketing. Um, SFL's unique selling point traditionally has been the applicability concept. Yeah? Let's remember that Halliday precisely coined applicability because he thought that applicability was already kind of worn out, mostly from the fact that many researchers who promised to do applicable work stayed at a theoretical level. Um, it is true that although SFL has proved itself to be highly applicable, and by applicable, Halliday meant to like everyday life contexts. So the most obvious one that SFL has made itself applicable to is, of course, the in the educational in teaching, right? Which in the end is a day-to-day context, no? But SFL has, I think, proven itself useful in its applicability to context, like for instance, health context, like in hospital discourse, etc. But probably a bit too shyly, meaning it's been like some attempts here, a couple publications here and there, but then, and this might actually connect to your second or third point. I remember now when you were asking about who is going to, pick it up from where the big names have left it. No, this research has not really been picked up and expanded. Why? Well, probably because of lack of prowess in getting funding for new research. We have not been probably very, very good at that. That would really be like food for thought, and something that would really merit like a gathering of the fathers of the theory to see what's going on, no? Because the examples are there, but no like heavy work has been done on that. And actually, because Australia is a very nice context also to reflect on some of the things that you very kindly mentioned in your question, because you were comparing these government binding, etc., these theories, these aspects that got the backing of institutions, right, of the establishments. In Australia, SFL got to be like the theory that was used officially in language education, right? I don't know if it has gradually falling a bit out of favor, but for 2 or 3 decades, it was actually the theory that was used. It's true that you think, for instance, the SFL context in Australia, big names. Well, the biggest name in Australia right now is Jim Martin, who's picking up after Jim Martin? Well, the main disciple, maybe Yogandera, no, the guy who's arranging the SFL, the Friday SFL seminars there in Australia. In the Chinese context, who has been the biggest name there? Well, Christian Matheson, well, he was in Hong Kong, right? Now he's working mm, a bit more detached from the official institutions and doing very valuable work. But it's true that no big name has followed there in the Chinese context, right? I want to believe that people who are still not big names will be able to provide. In fact, I'm a member of the European Systemic Functional Association, right? And every year we hold the Jeff Thompson bursary that we award like a young scholar working on his or her PhD, where they get like a waiver for the registration fee and for the gala dinner. And this year, although we don't have the European conference, but it's kind of subsumed by the international one. Uh, we were sent by Tom Bartlett. We were sent like 15 applications from 15 people doing their PhD work, and we were very impressed by the high quality of what they are doing. And it's not just the high quality of what they are doing; is that they are PhD students who have a supervisor. So I think there are people working there more or less quietly who are like taking care of SFL.
Yeah.
So I'm not that pessimistic in that respect. I think that, and this also connects to one of your questions. You were a question about robotics, right? Uh, I don't know if the name Mishia Sugeno says anything.
Mhm.
He was a Japanese researcher. He died not a long time ago, and he was actually for many years he was based in the north of Spain, and there he worked in a soft computing company in Asturias, and they were actually trying to develop to teach a robot to talk. Okay, and systemics in a way was seen as a very good theory for that, because since there are plenty of studies by Halliday and other people on how humans evolve in terms of the famous ontological ontogenesis, right? How we develop language in our lives. They were trying to teach a robot to speak in the way we humans do,
Mm.
starting with the interpersonal meaning, continuing with the experiential meaning, and moving on to the
Excellent.
meaning. Eh? And I honestly don't know how successful that was in the end, because he retired, and I don't know if somebody picked up the work there. But picking up on that, I think that systemics has a very good potential in all AI related studies,
Mm.
because since AI models in the end have been modeled on probabilistic models, not on not on formally based models like traditional Chomskyan models, right? I think the probabilistic model is much easier to relate to systemic functional linguistics than to other models, because in the end, when we speak of, for instance, marked choices or unmarked choices in systems, eh, they are very much determined by what is more often said, what is more often
Yeah.
chosen, right? And I think we have a nice gateway there to provide valuable insights into AI, because I work with AI quite a lot, and the thing is that when you work with AI frequently, you realize that there is a very clear ceiling in what in the way AI can communicate. I'm talking about communication, okay? About the kind of production can give you, the output from the AI agents, whether ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot. And I think that SFL can offer insights that may help move a bit, move up the ceiling for AI in terms of communication. And I think that SFL also, even if it was not part of your question, but I'll offer it as a bonus answer. I think we also have a model which may allow us, I don't know if for the first time, but probably for the first serious time, to build a bridge between language, conscious language, and the unconscious. Okay, because the idea of SFL, this idea in terms of stratification and the idea of like several contexts of a situation, like realizing the context of culture in which they take place, right? And then different contexts of culture representing maybe a larger context of culture, for a whole country or for a whole even continent. We could even, if we think, I don't know, I don't know if you're familiar with Jung's archetypes. We could think of the archetypes in Jung's philosophy maybe as ways to relate the context of culture to those archetypes, maybe like many contexts, all the possible contexts of culture in the world, maybe realizing the archetypes, which according to Jung were universal archetypes. So and all that could also have an influence on artificial intelligence, because so far artificial intelligence cannot work with the unconscious. We should need to be able to see how our unconscious is reflected. Yeah, and I'm talking about this because an important aspect in choice in systemic linguistics is the idea that language choice is unconscious but intentional, right? Uh, More than unconscious is automatic, is automatized, right? But this in a way means that we are drawing a lot from the unconscious because we are not thinking about it, and that gives us also a very nice opportunity to. So I think the future for SFL is there. We just need to, you know, to work on it.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. Fatma, your turn, and then we have a comment on the chat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jorge. Your presentation was really excellent, and I think it mirrors your work, the questionnaire that you sent. I actually answered that, and I think you've done great work. Yeah, if we want as SFLers to be open or to be to have more people using SFL, so probably we need to start asking ourselves questions. And I share Professor Bakloute's thoughts about producing something simpler, probably not only for students, but only for people from other disciplines. This is also important. I would also add some comments that I wrote here, but which I think would also help if we want to get heard. So probably if you as a person, you want people to listen to you, you need also to listen to you yourself to listen to people. So probably in our conferences, in our congresses, whatsoever, probably having people from other disciplines talking about their own disciplines, and then getting our own speakers involved in other conferences, etc., might actually help. This would be a bit difficult because this would make us take the extra mile. I mean, you are an SFLer. If you want to participate in a conference, for instance, let me say in cognitive linguistics or in research on metaphor whatsoever, so you need to know what people there are doing, etc., and then you need to think about how to come up with something where you show the importance of the theory. But I think this is actually what we should be doing. Okay, so get people from other fields, and we ourselves moving probably to listen to other people and participate actually in other conferences, publications also. I also thought about young people. young researchers. And as Professor Bakhluti said, so most people here in Tunisia, through our experiences in teaching in the master's degree, they are a bit afraid of all the complexities, the terms, etc. But if we try to get the best practices of other communities, so I personally participated in a conference in RAM, Research on Applying Metaphor, and they have a community for the young people. So they have a newsletter for the young people. They have young people coming together. I myself, I remember when I was a PhD student, I participated in summer school in SFL, and it was really helpful. So if you bring people together from all over the world, people from different places, talking, sharing their ideas, sharing their problems, so about SFL, etc. This is also very helpful. Giving them the space to talk through newsletters, through in conferences, whatsoever. So if you attend the conference, it's not only for the big names to speak, but also why not have sessions for young researchers also probably to collaborate, to talk, to ask a specialist. Sometimes this is, I think, very helpful. Yeah, I think this is it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fatima. Yeah, well, I mean, it's plenty of. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities, right? You have mentioned several of them, which link to what Akila said, which link to what I said. So I think that we have the ideas. Now what we need, as Akila was pointing out too, is a time, no time
and money.
And money and backing, no.
Which relates to the comment in the chat box. Let me read it very quickly because it deals with the same idea. Ghaniani Samah, she says, I think this is a call for us all to know more about the funding issues. There are certain people and startup companies that have great work in this area. So maybe, that could be also a solution to knock the doors on some companies, I don't know, private sector. Is there a possibility for collaboration in that respect as well?
Sure. Yeah. Mostly anything having to do, as I was saying before, with artificial intelligence and stuff. Companies, if you offer them a good idea, they are gonna be, and it's always good. I mean, I suppose that in Tunisia is the same. In Spain, we have one kind of contract that you can sign between universities. It's a specific model pattern that you can sign between university groups and companies, which is usually of great interest to both sides, right? Because for companies, it always looks good in their research and development area to be collaborating with universities, right? And for universities, it always looks good to be collaborating with companies, because that way they cannot tell us that we don't take society into account, right? In our work. And actually, before anything else, and building on Akila's and Fatma's and all the comments on different ways of integrating with other disciplines, I would like to add another one way which we have identified also of which is very fruitful for cross fertilization, at least for making SFL visible to other disciplines, and it's when we produce like special issues, for instance, for journals, or even with themed volumes. With journals is more clear, since when we edit one of those special issues, we typically have to write an editorial, right? There we have a very good opportunity when we write that editorial to relate the topics of the papers, the SFL based topics, relate them to how those topics are dealt with by the general literature, right? That's what, for instance, we made a point of it on an editorial of a special issue we edited, Christian Mathisen, Winfred Schwan, and myself, with IRAL, International Review of Applied Linguistics, and it's actually open access, that editorial, and we made a point of all the things, all the topics that came up in the papers and that we covered, always start with reference to the big names in the discipline, works that had been done, not necessarily within SFL, and then trickle down to SFL, and from there to the papers in the volume.
Right.
Thank you for the tip.
Very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Can I say something as well, maybe? Yeah, this is just you mentioned in your talk so many points, and actually, what I kept is this idea of now it is possible for you, if you use SFL, to be criticized simply because you're adopting something that for some people either is not known enough or is outdated. That was the term I received in a very recent review on a book chapter I'm writing with some other colleagues. And the reviewer didn't explain why he said that or she said that. And they simply said, well, SFL is now outdated, and it is has been severely criticized throughout the years. And you are citing works such as Halliday and Matheson, which dates back to 2014. But you need to remember that you're using a theory dating back to, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 years ago. So things have evolved in the meantime. It was really harsh. And I felt like it wasn't an attack against the chapter that we're writing, but it was rather towards the theory itself. And yeah, I mean, I might be wrong, but because I couldn't find any explicit types of real concrete examples of what was wrong in the theory that we applied, so I felt it like an attack on the theory rather than on the chapter. And another thing I noticed also, and I will take an example, but this example is just to refer to this notion of visibility. I'm sure you, and because most of the colleagues in Tunisia, they work on academic writing. There is a very big name in academic writing, Ken Highland. I'm sure you, and if you read through the most of his publications, they're all based on SFL. The only exception is that when I read through that, I rarely come across the word systemic functional grammar or systemic functional linguistics. You will find Halliday everywhere in the publications, and the whole model that was created within this meta discourse model, which is now the top cited one. If you go to Google Scholars, the first linguist that is top cited is Highland. That means imagine the spread of the theory around the world across different disciplines, whether academic or ESP disciplines. So Halliday's name is there, but the theory is not. So there is a problem. I feel like it's an issue of gratitude to some extent, or I don't know. I have no explanation for that. So maybe I would love to hear from what you think on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, if Highland does not acknowledge systemic functional linguistics, maybe this opens up an opportunity for a couple special issues or volumes on the connections between Highland's model and systemic functional linguistics. So maybe it should be us doing it.
Probably. I thought about that at some time, honestly.
And I think that opens a very interesting area of research to make SFL visible, and probably to open a way of research that would make many people be aware that what Highland has been doing, if he doesn't want to acknowledge it.
I'm not saying he doesn't want it. I mean,
no, but for some reason, maybe it's connected to the first thing you were saying. Maybe SFL is bad branding. Maybe.
Yeah, you're like the geek now, the nerd. If you're in my department, when I look at my colleagues, from the comments I get, I look like the geek, the nerd, like whether positively or negatively, but you're tagged in a way. Akila, you wanted to say something, please.
Yeah. In fact, I cannot help saying. Yeah, I mean, this debate and all this work on academic discourse, and you mentioned something very important, Nasreen, when you said that the meta discourse model is the most cited.
Absolutely.
You know why? because it's more accessible to researchers, to novice researchers. Now, Highland managed, and that was, I mean, I discussed that with Hilary Nessie when she visited us last year. And why Highland is the most frequently cited when it comes to meta discourse, although the same concepts are in SFL,
Absolutely.
because Highland managed to make his model more accessible for people who are outsiders. Okay, that I mean that this is as simply as that. That's why he managed to do that. Although most of it or all of it is based on SFL, but it's more accessible. So it's like the intermediary between the SFL, which is purely theoretical, and the application. That is why I said earlier we need people from SFL to acknowledge SFL and to make it more accessible to outsiders. This is, I think, this is what we need to be working on.
Yeah, sure. I guess we should you know invite Highland to a couple of SFL conferences, feed him very well, make him feel very happy, so that he acknowledges us. I mean, there's no reason why he shouldn't acknowledge us. And about the first point that Nervin you made, I mean, I always find it very sad when reviewers, justify their criticism, based on the model you're using. I believe that no model is good or bad in itself. At least, all these major models, they are as good as you know it and as you know what to do with it. So, because different models offer you different tools. It's like when you have to repair something, you have a number of tools there, and if you know how to use the tools, you'll do it well. And if you don't know how to use the tool, you may have the most wonderful tool. And we all have seen when we have evaluated research, mostly by novel researchers. Sometimes they may use any very valuable theory. They use the most incredible statistical tools, and then they don't know what to do about the results they get because they don't know how to use the theory, and they don't know how to use the theory to interpret those results. So I always believe, and that's what I try to apply when I review papers, is I I don't care if they are doing systemics or they are doing whatever the framework is. I care what they do with it. Are they showing me anything interesting? Are they revealing just a tiny little thing from language that is interesting thanks to that theory? Then welcome, you know?
Faisal, please go ahead. I mean,
But I don't totally agree with Aqil concerning her comment on Highland and comparing Highland to Halliday. I think Highland's meta discourse theory is actually situated at the periphery of discourse. It could fit into, for example, modulation modalization in Halliday's theory. So you can study a text metadiscoursally. I don't know, because there is a difference between propositional content and metadiscourse. Halliday offers a model which comprehensively studies, examines all these aspects. But Highland's theory is actually limited to the interactive and interactional dimension of communication. So this is why I think Highland himself and all the studies which subscribe to the systemic functional model are actually using the discourse dimensions of tenor, field, tenor, and mode. So they so he's already Highland is already a faithful customer of SFL. So I link this up with a question I sent. Nasreen, have you seen my question?
yeah, let me read it very quickly. So, a morphological suggestion for Dr. Jorge concerning Halliday's term, applicable. Would you agree to drop the prefix AP and make SFL pliable to become applicable?
Okay, so what's your worry about the a before that? It might be interpreted as a negative prefix or what?
I'm encouraging SFL to be pliable.
Yeah, well,
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's maybe it's, it, if we insist, let me speak as an insider, if we insist that SFL can be autonomous, I don't think you are calling for this actually, because you are not advocating that, because you have mentioned interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity many times. So we need to, um, maybe for the sake of epistemological humility for SFL advocates, to say that we would like to serve other disciplines. So you can use us, you can use our theories, our constructs, because they are very helpful. So if we maintain that we are an autonomous branch of knowledge, nobody will actually uh, maybe accept this challenge. So this is pliability
okay.
as a phase, as a preparatory phase for applicability. This is a joke, actually.
No. It might be a joke, but it actually very nicely relates to what one of the commenters, when we were reading what SFLer said about the survey, about I mean, it's not the same, but we can connect it to the not being try to avoid being clicky. That is, you have to be flexible, as the pliability
Mm-hmm.
would refer to, and open to
Mm-hmm.
other thoughts. But in fact, I think that SFL, the way the theory is, it has all the conditionings for doing so, because I don't think it's a hermetic theory. I think it's a theory that can itself adapt itself to many other things. So no, I think your suggestion is very good. And actually, I think that what you were saying about Highland, like saying, okay, I don't agree that he's doing exactly SFL, but he's more on the well. But actually, I think this brings even more of a need to where I was saying before. No, maybe like having special issue or a volume
Yeah.
explaining Highland from a systemic functional perspective, how systemic Highland is, how non-systemic he is, and how Highland's meta model and SFL can cross-fertilize each other, right?
Maybe one very quick addition about this is that there is a classification in meta discourse into integrative, non-integrative meta discourse. And this is maybe this is an opportunity for the junction or the interface between meta discourse and SFL. The integrative branch of meta discourse believes that in modularity, you can deal with the ideational, interpersonal, or uh,
The textual.
textual separately.
Mm-hmm.
If you are dealing with interactive meta discourse, so you are focusing on text reflexivity, mechanics of text writing, not on the interpersonal side, and vice versa. And there is another branch which says no, they need to operate together, all the three meta functions together. I think this is one of the interfaces between meta discourse and SFL.
Well, actually, from the systemic perspective, both Halliday and Mattison too, and some others also have repeatedly said that although language always has the three strands of meaning, they are not always equally foregrounded,
Mm.
which might easily relate to you were explaining now,
Yeah.
right? It is a fact that, for instance, when in casual speech, the interpersonal makes higher impositions
Domination.
on the others. And for instance, on academic writing, on other kinds of formal writing, the textual is very important. The kind of texture we create when writing is not the same kind of texture we create when speaking. So I think all that could relate very well to that distinction you were making in the meta discursive model.
Right.
I'm happy that there is a reconciliation between
Yeah.
theories.
Yeah, sometimes the essential points for a reconciliation are there, and sometimes we just don't see them, which is
Yeah.
we need to look around, you know.
It's true.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. Yes.
All right. Any more questions? Any more comments? Well, then, really thank you, Jorge, for all the oh, we've got
Oh,
one
sorry,
more.
sorry.
Please.
No, I just wanted to upload.
No. Okay, wrong hand, wrong button, no problem. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Thank you for our followers, our PhD students, our invited, seminar followers from long time ago. And of course, Jorge, our doors are always open. If you want to
Thank you
chime
very
in any
much.
moment, share your research, have your thoughts, perhaps collaborate with your, I don't know, I know, and congratulations on the new MA degree you have created, and I wish you the best of success there. And I'm sure we can collaborate on so
course.
many levels, also integrating some of the suggestions that you came to, and hopefully that will be beneficial for all of us. Also,
Okay.
me, by the way.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to share this time with you this morning. It's been very enjoyable. I think the discussion has been very enlightening and very fruitful. And I will be sending you, Nesrin. I will be sending
Thank
you
you.
the presentation so you can share.
Wonderful, wonderful. Also, some of the links I found interesting, and I wanted to ask you about, especially the links about Halliday's archive and whether or
Well,
not
they are on the presentation, so you'll be able to
Okay,
access
wonderful.
them by clicking on it.
Great. Thank you so much, Jorge.
Okay. Well,
All right,
thank you.
everybody. Thank you.